With 11 weeks of the college football season now complete, we've learned several things about the teams that are in the top 12 of the college football playoff. Some that are in are pretenders that need to be weeded out, and some are true contenders. But with week 12 on tap, there are a couple of matchups that will tell us some things about the upcoming college football playoff selection committee in the coming weeks. Want to find out which matchups are the juiciest and which ones we should just kind of glance over? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all for joining us on another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Of course, you're listening to the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And I'm certainly grateful for all you guys that have jumped in and have made some serious chat ways with me here on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. But before we get into it, of course, like always, I go through the housekeeping portion of this. I want to, of course, give gab out to my one and only buddy whom I actually got a chance to see in person today, and we had about an hour conversation. My man Brad, thank you so much, bud. I hate we did not get to finish our dialogue together. Maybe eventually we'll get to it again. And I want to give two major gab outs to two brand new individuals whom I had the pleasure of speaking with in person as well. One, we had a great conversation about the college football playoff and certain teams such as Purdue and Penn State. That will be Brian and Shane. Definitely want to give you guys a gab out. Hope you guys are watching the show. Hope you enjoy the content. And also make sure you put your feedback in. Hopefully looking forward to meeting up with you guys in a couple of weeks. And guys, as I said, Gridiron Gab Triple Option as well as my other platforms are beginning to take off. So if you don't join the immediate family, once I'm blown up, my immediate family gets first dibs on whether they want to be on the show when I start streaming or when I start going live. But guys, let's go through what our comments are here. Brad says, go Irish. I love you, buddy. Love you, buddy. You're getting on. We're going to have to get you that Irish shirt eventually. Run the ball, dogs. That's right. I agree. No, we can't say that on the show. No, can't say that. Of course, howdy. What's up, buddy? What's up? Yeah, of course y'all do. That's right. Come on, we don't bite. We certainly don't. Guys, jump in there and comment on some of the stuff that Brad talks about. Listen, that's what we're here. Indy still rocks. Yeah! Hey, you in a really fidgety mood right now. I'm all choked up right here. Where's this emotion coming from? I mean, you say you're red and black, but I'm starting to sense you blue and gold, Brad. You blue and gold. You gold and blue through and through.
What? Yoo-hoo. I'll make you famous.
I knew it. Just don't run away from your feelings. I'm sorry, but Hunter and Sanders are wasting their time at Colorado. Agreed. And as I said before, I will talk about this in more detail on Gridiron Gab Pro Style because this is where Dion is sticking his nose in the wrong spot. I'm sorry. These guys want to go to a franchise. You are not Arch Manning, okay? At the end of the day, no. So Shador is got to show that he is a elite quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's elite. I'm sorry. He's going to have a chance to prove it if they make the college football playoff. He's got a chance to erase a little bit of doubt from my mind this week. No, Miami ain't got the best player. Mr. Ashton has a say, and then you got the Pony Express 1 and 2. Yeah, Jonty is very good, but I still think right now they're running neck and neck. I think Jonty's probably right down there, but just because he's a running back. He's going to have one more monster game to kind of erase everybody's memory from, everybody's memory of Cam Ward. But I think you're right. Jonty has got a huge say-so as to where this Heisman is going to go. You got to stop saying ND rocks. I mean, I get it. We know we rock. I've heard people say I'm actually pretty funny. Surprisingly enough, I think my corniness is kind of over the top, but there are people that say I'm actually pretty funny.
What the It's not funny, Ed.
I can't help it.
Hey, shut up!
Now that we've got that out the way, I hope you guys are doing great. I'm doing well. As I said, I've had a busy week, but it's been a fun week. I had some really great things that I possibly have been able to get done, but you guys are going to start to see it as we move along. But we're less than a month away from the final selection committee. And I know many of you are looking forward to it, but we're coming down towards the end of it. And we've actually got a few juicy matchups, not really big ones, I would say. But we got one this week that could possibly shape the landscape of the college football playoff. But as I said, I'm going to try to go through and give you the matchups as I go. And we'll go from there. Let's go through the top 25 and look at the juiciest matchups we can find. But we're going to start with number 19, Louisville versus Stanford. Now, this game, I'm not looking for this one to be a major I'm not looking for Louisville to fall in this game. They've played some really good ball. They're coming off a huge win against Clemson. And honestly, this is a team that, in my opinion, is right there on the cusp of being in this 12-team playoff. They can beat anybody. Yes, anybody. There's no exclusions here, because when Louisville plays at their best, as we saw against Clemson, everybody's going to look at and they're going to say, oh, well, they've got 3 losses. Well, they've lost those games by a combined 21 points. They've been in the games they've lost. They've lost by 1 possession. They've got 3 games where they lost by a touchdown. So you can say, this is where I have a problem with Feinbaum saying the committee is a joke or it's an embarrassing. No, you're an embarrassment. And we actually discussed this amongst close friends of the show. I'm not a fan of Paul Feinbaum.
Is that your best? That was pathetic.
Not a fan of Paul Feinbaum. I think he's an SEC bias. Doesn't know good football when he sees it. He thinks all of it's located in the Southeast. Because honestly, the best quarterback play is not necessarily in the Southeast. Well, let me rephrase that. Maybe over the last couple of years, it's not been there. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If the best we can get is Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart.
Is this a hypothetical question?
And Carson Beck. We got problems. Just saying. And the one thing that I will add to that, great defense has left the Southeastern Conference. So at least back in the early 2000s, when you could say the Southeastern Conference played defense, or was it just a combination of the offense was just that bad? But as I said, Louisville is a very good offensive football team, and they play very good defense. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, you look at the scores that they've given up in games. Oh, no, they don't play good defense. No, their team, between SMU and Notre Dame, these teams play really good offense, and including the Miami Hurricanes as well. This team has had a very tough schedule. I get sick and tired of hearing people like Feinbaum saying Georgia's had a tough schedule. Well, look at this schedule. Louisville's played Georgia Tech, who just upset Miami last week. Then they played Notre Dame. Then they played SMU. And then they played Virginia. Then they played Miami. All of this is Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, and SMU, Virginia, Miami. They played those teams back to back to back to back. Georgia ain't never had to go back to back to back to back to back. Because here's the reality. SMU, whether people want to admit it or not, this is a good football team. Me and many of people have talked about, right, Brad? SMU is fun to watch. For a team to have gone through so much adversity and to see them back on the scene is a lot of fun. But we'll get into that. But as far as I'm concerned, Louisville is a football team that can beat anybody. I don't see this being a game of any kind of consequence where they're in trouble unless there's major injuries or whatnot. Then we move on to number 18, Washington State against New Mexico. And I don't see this game being an issue either. I think Washington State, Wazoo goes to 9-1. And the question is, does the committee see their schedule as a consequence? Because ultimately, this is a football team that does not have a major impressive win. Now, they do have an opportunity next week to go and face the Oregon State Beavers in Corvallis and possibly pull out a big win. But outside of this, the one game that they had, other than Washington, which Washington's not great this year, but you got Boise and you kind of got dismantled in that game. So, Wazoo will probably go up, but they won't be impressive enough in the eyes of the committee to get in the playoff. But as I said, I don't see Washington State having any issue. They go to 9-1 against the on the road against the New Mexico Lobos. Then you got New Mexico State facing off against the 7-2 Texas A&M Aggies. This seems like, once again, one of those games where you kind of just look at it and you're just going to pad your stats. Not sure who is going to start this football game. I'm assuming Reed is going to start yet again because he kind of does need a game where he can kind of pad those passing stats. He needs that to get his accuracy together. And I would not want him running all over the field. This would be a game I think Texas A&M can handle easily. But I think the emphasis and the onus needs to be on Reed getting his throws down, because you need this guy accurately throwing the football so it can set him up running the football. Listen, they would be doing a miscarriage of justice if they do go out there and they just run all over the field. No, this guy needs to be throwing the ball in situations where the game matters. And I see them doing that, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go out there and they let Reed run for 200 yards all over New Mexico State. Then you've got the 8-1, the 14th ranked SMU Mustangs, as we alluded to, as a very good offensive team that is, it has a relatively underappreciated defense, facing off against Boston College, who is 5-4. Boston College is one of those teams that has this game could normally have upset written all over it, but I don't see it. I think they put up a pretty good struggle. But ultimately, I think what eventually happens is they fall. SMU is going to be too much. And looking at what SMU brings to the party, you got to be excited about the way this football team. If you've never watched SMU, this is going to be a very fun game. It's a 3:30 game. And looking at how exciting and explosive this offense is, you've got Kevin Jennings and Rashard Smith, the 1-2 punch of this offense, and a sort of receivers that can either get down the field or stretch the field. And then you have these other receivers that eat up the middle, and a tight end that's very much a dangerous red zone threat for the SMU Mustangs. But as far as the Boston College has once again, they always live and die by their defense. They have a decent offense this year, but I don't think it's going to be enough to go into Dallas and beat this team. I really don't. I don't think they're going to be able to just go in there and really put. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think ultimately SMU is just that strong of a football program right now. They're in a different position, and they've got two. Like I said, Jennings is a playmaker that could, by himself, change the entire landscape of what Boston College's football team is. Castellanos is a you look at his numbers and compare him to Jennings, it's 99 for 161, 1,366 yards. He's thrown 30 fewer passes than Jennings, but yet he's almost thrown 500 yards fewer yards. So that tells you right then and there what the SMU Mustangs like to do. They like to throw it down the field. Now, Castellanos has 6 more touchdown passes, of course. And the big thing is Brashard Smith. You look at the top running backs comparable. Smith's got nearly got double what Boston College's top back has. So, as I said, the offense is something to be desired. I don't see the Mustangs making a lot of mistakes. This is why I am taking them, and Boston College won't pull the upset. And, of course, they're at home. So, ultimately, I don't see this as being an issue. Now, I will be surprised if I don't see a lot of grabs from Lewis Bond, the junior, whom he's an exciting player in respects to him. He's a very, very high volume receiving type of guy. They like to run a lot of short stuff with him, a lot of screens. So SMU's going to have to tackle in space a lot like they did against Louisville. So if they can keep Bond in check, I think this is going to be a walkthrough. But it's going to be fun, as we've always said. Then we got our favorite, one of the top 5 players in the country, and arguably one of our top players here at Gridiron Gab Triple Option, and Ashton Jonty and the 8-1 Boise State Broncos against the San Jose State Spartans. Now, quietly, the Spartans are 6-3. You look at this team and you say, okay, where's their impressive win? Now, it wasn't a win that was impressive. It was a loss. They went to Pullman and lost by 2 points to the Wazoo Cougars. Now, here's why I think this team could give issues to this team. When they get hot, they can score with anybody. This is not a game that they're just going to walk in. Now, I mean, it could very well be, but I don't think so. Not with this game not with Boise State traveling to San Jose State. I look at it from the standpoint that if the San Jose State Spartans can get extra guys in the box and contain that offensive line and get Jonty in the backfield and basically say, okay, we're going to use Floyd Chalk, the running back for San Jose State, and then use play action with Emmett Brown and throw it that way. Because here's the thing, Emmett Brown is 125 he's completing less than 60% of his passes, but he's got 16 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And the truth be known, you got guys like Nick Nash who have 86 catches on the year, and he's got a 43 long of 43. And then you got Justin Lockhart, long of 57. He's got 38 grabs on the year. And then you got Jackson Kanan, who has a 58 yarder. So you look at this team and you see a lot of balls that go down the field. Not to mention Nick Nash has 13 touchdown receptions on the year. So this is not a foregone conclusion that Boise State's going to continue to win. Okay, Nash is 6'3", 195 pounds. The senior is a guy that can get open, and he is able to get down the field. So he's that blend of speed and size. Now, how does this pertain to the Boise State Broncos? Well, you have to lean on Ashton Jonty. Now, there have been a couple of close calls for Boise State, and a lot of it has been when you've seen that teams have basically stuffed the line of scrimmage in preparation of stopping one Ashton Jonty, and you had to ask your quarterback, Maddox Madsen, to throw the football. And in the last couple of weeks, when they've actually put some heat under this guy and held Jonty, I don't want to say they've held him in check. He's still been marvelous in a lot of ways, but Madsen has not had really good performances. You look at the game against Nevada, he was 9 of 20, 119 yards. That was a game they easily could have lost. Jonty had a pretty good game, but the only game I've seen him go off on was the San Diego State game, where he was 24 of 32, 307 yards and 4 scores. But really, they whipped the defensive line. The Boise State Broncos are predicated on winning at the line of scrimmage. And San Jose State has shown an ability to win up front. I'm not saying that this is going to be an upset, but I will tell you this. Maddox's play is going to be huge in this game as to whether Jonte is going to get that space, Brad. Remember I said that. This is a game that is going to be either a lot of fun if you're a football fan, or it could be a disaster if you're just a straight Boise State fan, because if this game becomes one of those games where the offensive line for Boise State can't win the line of scrimmage, it's going to be one of those games where you look at it and you're frustrated. But I'm picking Boise State in this one. I think it ought to be a fun one. I think Jonte probably scores 2 in this game, but I think it's close for about 2.5 quarters. Number 10, Alabama versus Mercer.
Bruh.
Do we even need to talk about this? Alabama ought to be ashamed of putting Mercer on him. If anything, they should go to Mercer. That's what I want to see. Because I got a friend that tailgates at the Mercer game, and I'm sure there would be nothing much more fun than actually tailgating at a game where you're going to get absolutely walked all over. I'm just saying. Alabama wins this game. Then they've got a date next weekend, a real date. Number 4, 8-1 Penn State Nittany Lions and the 1-8 Purdue Boilermakers. Now, we were talking, a new friend of mine, and of course, another friend of the show, we're talking about Penn State. We talked about the quarterback situation there, and like I said, many people are talking about Drew Aller and this, that, and the other. But I'm going to say it in this way. Purdue has had some games this year where they actually showed up and showed out. Ask Illinois. Ask Northwestern. And this game is at West Lafayette. And just like the Illinois game when they were undefeated, Hudson Card played pretty good. And the running game for Purdue was pretty good. Now, am I calling for the upset? I'm not calling for it. But I don't want you guys looking around and saying, well, they suck. Because the reality of it is the college football landscape is insane at times. You have to be able to decipher what you can do as far as looking past opposing teams and how you can look past them. Because, as I said, they've got Minnesota next week. And a lot of people are going to say, well, Minnesota ain't that. Well, you got to go to Minneapolis. That's not as easy as it looks. Going to somebody else's building to win, especially a team that's they ain't no pushover. But we'll talk about that game next week. But I sense Penn State will win, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was an upset here. Here's one that's really going to be a interesting one. You've got the 8-1 third-ranked Texas Longhorns facing off against the 5-4 Arkansas Razorbacks. Well, looking at this Arkansas team, they have been able to irritate quite a few opponents this season. Starting with the Auburn Tigers, they gave the Tennessee Volunteers their first defeat in their building, of course, at their building in Fayetteville. And yeah, I mean, we could sit here and they gave Texas A&M a run for their money in their building. This is not a good position to be in if you're the Texas Longhorns, coming off of, to me still, Quinn Ewers has not looked like himself. Me and Brad were talking about that in person. Quinn Ewers does not look like himself. And honestly, this is not what you want a position you want to be in if you're the Longhorns. To me, Sarton needs to give this game to Manning. Let him go through, because right now, to me, he doesn't need to keep re-aggravating this injury. And that's what it seems like he's doing. Seems like he's going out here trying to play through it when he doesn't need to. Because, listen, whether you guys know it or not, if you're hurt and you're trying to gut through pain and then you're kind of tweaking mechanics while you're throwing the football. And then once you get healthy, you get used to tweaking those mechanics for the pain or adjusting. You're kind of doing the same thing when you're healthy, or you get back to regular mechanics. And you're trying to, you forget to adjust based on whether you're healthy, but you're throwing them mechanically the same way you were, or you're anticipating the same way you were when you were hurt, or maybe you're over anticipating or whatever. But I personally think that if this crowd stays in it, because Green is one heck of a quarterback. If you look at it, I get it. Ewers has been out a couple of games, but he's 161 of 263 for 22-14, has 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The turnovers have really really killed the Arkansas Razorbacks. And stagnant offense. This could be a game that could be a real issue for the Longhorns, especially if Green gets going. I see this game being one that's going to be on my radar. And I will say this right here. It would not surprise me with an Arkansas Razorback upset. It's not. It would not surprise me. Would not surprise me if I got a notification tomorrow that Texas had been upset. But as is, I'm going to give Texas the edge by a short margin, not a big one. I think Arkansas controls the pace, and I honestly think this is going to be a game that Texas wins and they get by the skin of their teeth. Then we got the 8-1 number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes against the 4-5 Northwestern Wildcats. And I don't see this being a game because, as I said, Northwestern's offense has been so up and down. I know what people are going to say. Well, Northwestern's 4-5 and they're 2-4 in the conference. Well, there you go, 2-4 in the conference. And needless to say, you've got bad losses to the Washington Huskies. You've got a bad loss against Indiana at home. Maryland you got a big win last week at Maryland. And as I said, you've got some really tough losses against the elites of the conference. Now, I'm not saying that this is a game that presents an eliteness, but let's keep it real. Ohio State has been PO'd since that loss to Oregon. They're just waiting for their next opportunity to get them in I would say more than likely, on level playing field. I mean, we may end up seeing in the first college football playoff 2 teams meeting 3 times in one season. This would be amazing. This would be absolutely amazing. Because I already can tell you, even if Ohio State were to lose to Oregon in the championship game, they're going to the college football playoff. And I don't doubt that. And they could be one of the first teams to make the Final Four being outside of the top 8. And not host a game. And they could be very well sitting there. But I think Ohio State wins this game big. Will Howard doesn't hurt them here. As they try to get off the field as fast as they possibly can in anticipation for that big matchup next weekend. Now, the next game here, the number 8 Fighting Irish against the 5-4 Virginia Cavaliers. This one presents a sense of spice because, much like the previous game, you have a 5-4 Virginia team who has had their moments where they played it pretty well, and then there's moments where it's just, where's this at? In that Louisville game that they lost, they were really impressive. Even at the beginning of that Clemson game that they lost 48-31, that was a pretty darn good game. And then you saw last week, and Mr. CeeLo called it, when they beat Pitt and they upset them at Pitt. My concern was the amount of offense that Pitt could generate. We already knew Virginia could generate some offense. The question is, could they do it against the defense of the Pitt Panthers? And that was always my question. And needless to say, my question this week is, can they stop the Irish running game? Now, I will say Pitt had a really strong running game. The issue is, can they stop a offensive line as big and running backs that are as big as the ones the Irish have in Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love? And then, of course, you got to throw in Riley Leonard. You got to throw him in there. But you look at Anthony Calandria. This is a guy that has a 63% completion percentage. He got 12 touchdowns and 8 picks, but he's been sacked 30 times. And as of late, the Irish have been coming on as far as their pass rush goes, and they've got guys all over the field that can intercept the football. So the only reason I'm taking the Irish in this one is because I think ultimately Calandria is going to turn the ball over to that Irish secondary, and this is going to turn into, I honestly think this is going to turn into a wallop. That's what I honestly feel in this one. I think Virginia is able to look like they're with the Irish for the first, I would say probably the first 2 drives, and then the Irish just open up on them and with this running game, and then I believe they take shots in this game. And I think Virginia tries to match score for score, and they're not going to be able to do it in South Bend. Then, as I said, with Paul Feinbaum, I really get irritated because he doesn't watch everybody. And that's the problem. When you sit there and say, oh, well, this team beat this team, you're looking at just one conference. These upsets happen all across the landscape. Guess what, Feinbaum? When teams recruit and they come up with game plans, they game plan to win in their conference. You got that? Does that make sense to you? And with a head that big, you figured you would be able to compute that. But you got a 7-2 Arizona State team, and then you've got a 7-2 Kansas State team who's ranked 16th. The reason why I look at this game and I say, because, I say Arizona's possibly going to pull the upset is because I look at the totality of the schedule. Now, do I think their wins are overly impressive? Not really. But I will say this, playing against Kansas State, K-State, in my opinion, is a team that is overrated because you don't know what you're going to get from them. Defensively, if you go back into the Schneider era, they've always been huge in the transfers and whatnot. But the thing is, they've lost one game against BYU, and they were just walloped. But, of course, BYU walloped a lot of teams this year. But then you look at the games that they won. They beat Colorado by a field goal at Colorado, and they went into Morgantown and beat West Virginia. And the week before that, they escaped Kansas. And last week, they lose 24-19 to Houston. So where the issue with Kansas State is can they score enough points? And then seeing that this team is in the Big 12 and right there third, fighting for their very lives, I might add, and along with the Sun Devils, who are also there. This is a game that's huge, and it controls the destiny of whichever team wins this game. Because you guys are going to find out, I don't see a certain team that's supposed to be in the driver's seat right now holding on. I think they end up getting theirs on Saturday. But we'll get to that. I'm going to go with Arizona State in the upset. I want to go with Arizona State in the upset, but then Kansas State's always been good at home. I'm just having a hard time going against Kansas State, but guys, if I was a betting man, I am going to go with Arizona State on my money, but I'm ultimately leaning towards Kansas State because they're home team. Now we start getting into the juicier of the matchups. Tulane Green Wave versus the 25th ranked 8-2 Tulane Green Wave against the 7-2 unranked Navy Midshipmen. Now, there are a lot of people that are going to wonder why is Tulane not ranked below Navy. Well, Navy lost back-to-back games. They got walloped by Notre Dame, which is not a bad thing if you're them, but then Rice beat them 24-10. But see, most people don't realize their quarterback was injured for this game. And when you really look at this team and you say, okay, this is what this team does well, and when your best player, whom happens to be your quarterback in this system. Horvath had a great first part of the year. He was 10 of 21 in this game. 10 of 21. 16 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown. But when you throw... How many times do you know a quarterback to throw it 21 times in the Navy offense? That tells me one thing. In a nutshell, hey, look, we're not going to allow this triple option to beat us. Yeah, we're going to come out here and we're going to stop your triple option. We're going to put guys all in the box. And which, in a sense, I just looked at it from the standpoint that Rice they came out and they did what they had to do. And when you turn the ball over, if you're the midshipman, that is not what you want. When you see the midshipman turn the football over, guess what? That is a recipe for disaster because they run an offense that is not dealt or built to come back. Their offense is built on pace, going at their own pace, which I think would be actually pretty interesting to run that type of offense at a fast pace, wouldn't you think? Just food for thought, Navy. But I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking that as much as I love watching Navy, Tulane is an interesting character. They've lost 2 games this season. One they lost to K-State in K-State by 7. Then they lost to OU early on, 34-19 at at Oklahoma. At Norman. So and then you look at the rest of it, 52-6, 45. They beat Rice, a team that Navy just lost to. So, and then they put up 71. So this is a team that can score points. So this is not a team that's a pushover. This is a team that can score quite a few points. Darian Mensah has 2,100 yards passing, and then Hughes, the running back, has 1,200. I'm trying to figure out why I haven't heard of this guy. Why is it I have to look up Tulane before I get this is my first look at this kid? He's got 1,209 rushing yards, and he's got 13 scores on the season. It's impressive. Ultimately, this is going to be a fun game to watch. This is going to be a back and forth type of game. If they get behind, this is probably going to be a track fest. And I ultimately feel like being that this game is going to be in Annapolis, I'm actually going to go with the upset. As much as I think Tulane is a high-powered offense, I'm going to take the upset today. I'm going to take Navy. Number 22, LSU versus the 4-5 Florida Gators. Now, you say what you want about the Florida Gators, and this is why I can't stand when I listen to guys like Paul Feinbaum. Nobody has had a schedule that has been more difficult than the Florida Gators. So when you say there's Georgia, sorry, Brad. Look at this. Miami, A&M, Central Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss next week, and LSU this week. And they got 4 wins out of this. Now, granted, their wins were Samford, Mississippi State, Central Florida, and Kentucky. Well, you go Kentucky in there. They gave Kentucky a beatdown. I got to say, this is going to be a huge matchup for them at Gainesville, but we've also seen that Gainesville presents a different animal for so many different teams. And honestly, this could be a springboard for the Gators going into next season, because they've win this game, and then if they come back and win next week, this could have huge implications for Lagway, who's going to start against the Tigers. And truth of the matter is, as I said before, I'm taking the Gators because I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why I'm going to go there. Because as good as Nussmeier's numbers look, the 11 interceptions concern me. Even though Kyron Layson is a beast, Nussmeier has shown horrible decision-making at times. Now, I know people are going to say, a guy who's thrown for almost 3,000 yards, he must be doing something right. Well, but as I said, especially in big games and on the road, he's shown a horrible recklessness with the football. And see, this is what I think ultimately keeps Florida in this game and allows Lagway to do what he does. Now, Florida's not been great on offense, but I think ultimately there's going to be enough defense in this game for Florida that they're going to force LSU into turnovers and recklessness from Nussmeier. This is why I'm taking Florida, and this is going to probably put Kelly on the hot seat. But LSU's team has shown an inconsistency as far as focus goes, much like Kelly has said. And then even Kelly and his coaching staff have shown a horrible inconsistency when it comes to coaching this football team. They're not consistent. And the issue that you have when you're dealing with a quarterback such as Nussmeier, you need to understand the flow of the game, the ebbs and flows of the game, when to take it down the field and when to kill it short. Florida's nothing has changed with the Gators. They still have guys all over the football field that are extremely athletic. And if Nussmeier makes bad decisions with this ball, it is going to cost them. And I believe in this game, this is going to be one of those games where the Gators come out, they're going to establish themselves. Nussmeier is going to have trouble with the crowd. The LSU Tigers have not been able to get the running game going. And I think ultimately the Gators' defense comes out and they are very loud and they do what they do. And these fast defensive players all over the field, led by Devin Moore, are going to come out and they're going to be swamp. They're going to make swamp bait out of the Tigers, just like that big time defeat last week. Now I know a friend of the show has always said, when you get walloped next week, you're going to be pissed. Well, here's the only drawback to that. LSU not only has a big game, LSU is not only in a situation where they have to win this week, which they won't. You're looking at a football team that now, even if they wanted to, even if you say you can't look ahead, they've got Vanderbilt next week. And I know what people are going to say. Well, if they can't beat Florida, they can't look forward to Vanderbilt. Well, they can't afford to lose at home yet again. Maybe in Gainesville you can afford to lose. You can't afford to lose at Death Valley yet again. That can't happen. Then you got number 20, the 7-2, 20th ranked Clemson Tigers versus the previously ranked Pitt Panthers that are 7-2. See, this is where I have a problem with the college football playoff committee. While Feinbaum's sitting his butt up there talking about, oh, it's a travesty the way that the rankings look this week. If you watch something besides SEC football, you know upsets are going to happen every week in every conference. The SEC ain't the only conference. Looking at this game, the reason why the Panthers are struggling is because they just don't have enough offense. And teams are saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're either going to go for it all or we're just going to wait, and then take a shot. You're seeing teams that are more inclined to go after them in patience. They don't just go out there and go for the haymaker immediately, because the Pitt Panthers are a team that they live and die by their defense. And teams, they try to force them into mistakes. Because they've got a really good defense, you guys. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I honestly think when they ran into that buzzsaw that was SMU, and that defense could not get much going, that was all she wrote. And do I think this is going to kill their season? Well, if you look at it, they've got Clemson, and then they got to go to Louisville. And they finish with Boston College. This is going to be a game that I'm looking at, and I know Clemson does not want to fall yet again. But you're going into Pittsburgh. And I'm just going to tell you, if you guys are not sold on quarterback Cade Klubnik, as I'm not, then this is going to be a long game, because I can tell you, Pittsburgh's not going to let Phil Maffa get over 100 plus yards like he's been the last couple of weeks. This is going to be one of those games that Cade Klubnik is going to have to win. I don't know if he can get it done. I really don't know if he's going to be able to come out there and have the impact in the last few games that he's had. I think ultimately Pittsburgh gets back on track in this game and Clemson loses 2 in a row, because ultimately Pittsburgh's going to make Klubnik make mistakes. And honestly, this Clemson team has not overly paid for those mistakes. Now, I know people are going to say, what are you talking about? They lost last week. Well, yeah, they lost last week, but you can't pin it all on Klubnik. I mean, granted, he's not that dude. I mean, I get it. I'm sorry, not last week, the week before. And you could argue they should have lost last week. But I'm telling you, this is going to be a game where if Klubnik does not come out and impress, because we can look at the Louisville game. Klubnik had 228 and Moffitt had 171. They're not going to run the football like that on Pittsburgh. I can tell you that right now. Pittsburgh's not going to let them run the football. And I don't see Klubnik being able to get it done. I really don't. I don't see Klubnik being able to get it done. They've got a top-tier defense. And the only question is, can the Pittsburgh Panthers score enough points? I don't know. So this is one I'm kind of like, people will say, well, make a decision. If I had to choose, I'm going to go Panthers because they're home. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to lean towards the Tigers lose 2 in a row because the Panthers just lost last week. That's where I'm at. I think Clemson's unable to throw the foot. I think if Klubnik can throw, he's going to need 250 at least for Clemson to win this game. If Klubnik can throw for 250, they win. They win. Then all because this team right here is beating some of the teams in the Southeastern Conference. The SEC should have more teams in there. Overrated 23rd ranked Missouri at 7-2 against the 21st ranked South Carolina Gamecocks who are 6-3. Look, there's no doubt that South Carolina's played some good football. But the problem is it's not show up when you want to. That has been the problem with South Carolina. They show up when they want to. And the truth of the matter is, you can't show up when you want to and then you want to lay claim to saying that the conference is good when they decide to show up. No, the whole point is you play the whole season. Paul Feinbaum.
What a dumbass.
Can't just pick 1 or 2 weeks. I'm going to show up this week. And then you think that makes, you a superpower? No. You have to play consistently. Doesn't matter. I'm waking up today. I want to be the best team in the land. Does not work like that, Paul. You would think as many years as you've been doing this, you would know this already. Apparently not. Looking at the schedule here, South Carolina got just manhandled by Ole Miss. Then they turn around and lose by 2 points to the Crimson Tide. Then they lose by a field goal to LSU. And they blow out OU and they blow out A&M. And then they beat Vanderbilt 28-7. I'm just going to say, part of me is going to say this game's going to be a wash. But then I have to stop back and I have to think, okay, well, the last time they played at home against a top-tier opponent, or so you say, before A&M, they played against Ole Miss and they got beat down. But this time, I'm gonna say that the South Carolina Gamecocks are going to walk the dog with Missouri because Missouri has not impressed me. I'm gonna say that in the A&M game was the coming out party of Sellers. Now, his passing needs a lot to be desired, but he's a lot like Reed over at Texas A&M. He's a guy that when he's got his flow going and he's got the offensive flow going, they're tough to play. They are tough to beat. And I'm gonna say it like this: Sanders is gotten a new gear since they've really started to get it back together. Now, if Sellers can just get the completion percentages right, they'll be in good shape. And for that reason, I'm looking at South Carolina with the crowd the way it is. I look for them to put Missouri out of its misery and be done with the top 25 for them this season. I think Sellers has a really good game, and for what it's worth, like I said before, I don't know why people kept pushing this Missouri team up. I get it. You got a quarterback that was possibly a guy who looks like he could be next level material. To who, I don't know. Brady Cook was kind of in and out of the lineup. Drew Pine did an admirable job coming in. As I said, not sure about his status yet. But then again, even if Drew Pine plays this coming week, I'm still not sold on him. As you guys know, I am a Notre Dame fan, and he was at South Bend. He played valiantly considering he was there for one season. But I still see South Carolina dominating this football game, whether it's Brady Cook or Drew Pine. This is a simple case of mistaken identity. This was a horribly overrated football team. And I think South Carolina proves it again. Now, this game right here is on here because everybody talking about the coach. Some of you know I don't like Coach Prime. There's a lot of people that like him. I don't. Not a fan of him. I think he's too brash, arrogant for no reason. You got to win something first. You know, you don't even have a conference title game appearance. And now you've got an opportunity to do that. Okay? And Utah is coming off of, and Whittingham disappointed me with his actions last week. So I can tell you right now, this is a football team plays really good defense, limited offense. And I'll tell you right now, Utah likes to run the football. And what better team to pick to run the football on than the Colorado Buffaloes? Yeah. They're one of the bottom teams in stopping the run. Yeah, Colorado's defense is in the middle of the road when it comes to total defense, and it's especially bad against the run. Much better against the pass, but as you guys already know, this is not the wheelhouse of the Utah Utes. The Utah Utes want to run the football. And for a team that gave BYU all it could handle last week against a team that is very good stopping the running game, I'm going to say it from this standpoint, and the Utah Utes are a very good defensive team. Barring a couple of really bad decisions, this could be a game that Utah could be running around here looking at a 6-4 mark. Now, do I think Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders are going to be good in this game? Debatable. I think ultimately it's going to be one of those games where Utah's going to play physical, and it could be a game dominated by penalties. Whittingham might be pissed off again. But I'm calling for the upset here. I'm calling for Deion to fall to 7-3. And we get the typical Deion excuses. Next, we got Kansas at BYU. The 9-0 BYU Cougars. Now, here's why this game is here. Now, BYU escaped last week. Now, anybody that wants to argue that, they can argue that. But this week, they have a football team that pulled a big upset of Iowa State last week. And I get it. This game's on the road. But I still look at a Kansas Jayhawk team that is finally getting it together with Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal. A team that I said earlier this year was going to be in this college football playoff. But the issue was that these Daniels and Neal did not get it together until it was too late. Now they're playing spoiler. And guess who's on their list? BYU. Now, as effective as this team is playing defense, I don't know if BYU can score with this Kansas team when they play well. Now, the reason why I put this one on my list is this. I am looking for the upset. Yes, I am. Now, I know Daniels has had some issues with the football. I get it. He's had some issues and he's made some mistakes with the ball. However, I see him getting it back together. He's been hot the last couple of weeks, and Neal has been just as hot. This offense has got it going. The defense is starting to tackle a little bit. And they've actually had some impressive wins. They took Kansas State all the way to the end in Manhattan. Dismantled the Houston Cougars and actually played Arizona State to the wire. Pretty much all of their games have been to the wire other than, well, no, all of them have been to the wire other than, that's just the way they've been all year. They've been right there on the cusp of victory. So you've got over 2/3, I would say all of their games have been one possession games. I think they finally got it together, and I think they give BYU their first loss. The tragedy of it is it's at 10-15. Because, looking at this BYU team, they were very fortunate last week. That's why I can understand Whittingham's frustration. I mean, I totally get it. But this is a team that is really getting by the skin of their teeth. It's not just last week, but I mean, you look at their numbers. Jake Retzlaff is a good quarterback, but then you look at the completion percentage, 58%, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Now, the sack numbers are actually down, but a lot of it is just missed plays. L.J. Martin's their leading rusher. He's got 425. And then you look at Jake Retzlaff, who's a mobile quarterback that they use in the run game at times. But you don't really have anything that sticks out with BYU. And then you got this Kansas team who've got 2 bona fide guys who can be stars. Do I think BYU's defense is good enough to stop them? Slow them down. The question is, can you stop the big plays with Kansas? Kansas is big on the big plays. I don't think they can. I think they get their first hiccup, and it pushes them completely out of the college football playoff conversation. Then we got number 1 or undefeated Oregon versus Wisconsin. Reason why I got this game up there is for one reason. It's in Madison. I don't care what none of y'all say. You ain't just going to walk into Madison, Wisconsin and beat these Badgers. You ain't going to do it. Nobody wants to go up there. Now, I get it. USC early on in the season beat them 38-21. Alabama walked into Madison and gave them the smackdown. You look at the game that they played at Penn, when Penn State played. Great game. They just could not get any offense against that good Penn State defense. And we've talked about that. Penn State's defense is good. Very good. You got Drew Aller at quarterback, whom I just can't get past. Now, Dylan Gabriel and company have yet to play a full game since the Ohio State victory. I think they're going to have to play a full game right here. I don't think they're just going to run up and down the field. I know people are going to say, well, the history shows. No, they haven't been blown out with Madison. I don't think it starts this week. I think Oregon gets the win, but I think this game is going to be a lot closer. And I think they actually, whatever the spread is, if it's less than 10 points, they cover it. Or if it's more than 10 points, they cover that easy. But I'm taking the Oregon Ducks in this one. And then the matchup of the week. Brad's ready for this one, ain't you, buddy? You ready to hit me on this one? Number 7 Volunteers travel to Athens to face the number 12, 7-2 Georgia Bulldogs, whom are outside looking in of the college football playoff. Well, we can watch and we can learn. The Georgia Bulldogs are the victims of their own worst recruiting. You got a stable full of backs, but yet you still want to throw the football. Why? Because you feel like Carson Beck is the dude, and he's not. Reason being is when you have guys like Brock Bowers and you have Ladd McConkey, these guys get open. When you got guys that can literally get open, it makes it easier. The Georgia receivers are not getting that wide open like they once were. They're not getting that separation. Now, I will say this, you got guys that are able to find openings in zones, but that's when it's zones. When you're trying to throw the ball one-on-one, these guys are not getting separation. And what happens when you don't get separation? You don't get those windows to throw into. Now, the key for Tennessee is can they run this wide open offense and get into these open areas against the Georgia defense and get broken tackles against this Georgia defense. Now, there's sources that are saying from Chris Lowe that Nico Iamaleava is going to play against Georgia. Now, here's the thing. If you look at Tennessee, and Josh Heupel's got this thing beautifully set up. Nico's only got 1879 on the ground. It's Dylan Sampson you have to worry about. All this talk about Nico, nobody talks about Dylan Sampson. And even, it wasn't until about 6 weeks ago that I really paid about 4 weeks ago I started paying attention to him. He's got 201 carries, y'all, for 1,129 yards. And 20 touchdowns. You know there's only one guy that's got more rushing yards and touchdowns than him? That's right. Ashton Jante. That's right. And what if I told you that Sampson has more rushing yards than the Bulldogs have as a team? What if I told you Sampson has more rushing yards individually as Georgia has as a team? What would you say? I'm crazy then, wouldn't I? It's facts. Sampson has 1129. Georgia as a team has 1117. Tennessee has this whole deception thing going on. Josh Heupel hides what he wants to do exceptionally well, and it's very impressive how he does it. This is the guy that is able to get teams like Georgia to fall into the fact that Nico Iamaleava is a guy who is going to carve you up. He's a good quarterback. He's not elite. And that's what you do. And this is the same thing that I see Lane Kiffin doing with Jackson Dart. But he doesn't have the running game that Heupel has. And this is where Georgia's gonna have to basically tackle in space. Georgia likes to send pressure, and I'm gonna say it from this standpoint. Do I think Tennessee's defense can withstand what Georgia's got without ETN playing? I don't know. This could be very well be a 5-touchdown game for Carson Beck. But Georgia always plays exceptionally well in Athens. This is one of those games that it's very difficult to trust Nico. And it's very difficult to not trust Carson. But part of me is telling me that Nico is gonna do enough, and Sampson's gonna have himself a decent game, and Beck's gonna mess it up. That's what I'm thinking. But the question is Georgia going to lose at home? That's the question. And Tennessee locks itself up, in my opinion, with a win. But the problem I have with this is I don't see Tennessee winning this game because Georgia just came off of an embarrassing loss. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm really not sold on Kirby Smart as a coach in the first place. I'm not a big Kirby Smart fan because, as many of you know, he cries too much. He's like the Sean Payton of college football. Yeah, I'm having a hard time deciding on whether I got a feeling about the Volunteers, but with Nico unsure, I'm really leaning towards Georgia. Not because I think Georgia's better, but it would not shock me. This game's going to go down to the wire. I think Beck makes a couple of mistakes, and Tennessee is patient. And I think ultimately, like I said, the Bulldogs make enough plays. I would argue that Georgia actually runs a football this weekend and tests this Tennessee front, which has been talked about all season, and they give their offensive line an opportunity to finally show what they can do. But I'm going to take Georgia by a field goal. I think ultimately Georgia wins this game. And the only reason I'm taking Georgia is because it's in Athens. If this game were in Knoxville, no contest. No contest. But guys, those are the games for tomorrow. I hope you guys find something exciting to keep an eye on. You know what I'm going to be doing all day. Checking things out, getting some conversations with people online, doing what I do. Also, guys, make sure you check in on your people. Drop me a line if you want to. But also, make sure with the holiday seasons coming up, you guys stay safe. Watch the football games, but please be careful while you're doing it. I know you guys are tailgating and so on and so forth. But let me know what you guys think. Also, drop lines to me down in the comments. I know, Brad, you got me. And then go to my Facebook page at Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Also, go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can find out the other things I'm involved in. And don't forget, you guys, if you guys subscribe, put your name down in the comments so I can add you to the immediate Gridiron Gab family. Because when I blow up, listen, only the immediate family members get dibs on what show they want to come on. Everybody else, you gotta wait in line. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.